Welcome back to the southwest of England. If you're new here, I'm Caroline, and in the last few episodes I've taken in some of the best culture and heritage, countryside and coastlines, food and general adventurous fun that this small slice of England has to offer. In today's episode I'll be headed to the National Trust's property of Godolphin here in Cornwall. If during the video you find yourself enjoying it, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel so that you can join me in my Devon and Cornwall adventures. Today I've come along to the National Trust's Godolphin. It's an estate that was built on an enormous amount of wealth gained from the tin and copper mining industries. Today the estate is a patchwork of historical layers and different wildlife habitats, and it's stitched together with a network of hiking trails which we're going to be undertaking, as well as trying to discover a bit more of the gardens and the exterior of the house itself. The house at the heart of the estate was once described as being the grandest in Cornwall. However, from about the mid-18th century, it started its slow decline. The National Trust purchased it in the sort of mid-2000s and set about working on restoring it to turn it then into holiday apartments. The old cider barn has been turned into a studio where you can sit down and watch some videos, and the video is probably about 20 minutes long or so, where we were able to learn a bit more about the restoration project and how obviously when it was going through its listed process it was needing to stay very true to how they went about restoring it. Things like the plasterwork on the wall and making sure that it was as true to the plasterwork that wasn't needing to be replaced. There has been the odd section that we've been able to go wandering through, but it's been particularly underneath the apartments, and at one point I did get a little bit of a shock because I think someone's still in one of the holiday lets and came walking above me, and the sound of the creaking on the wooden floorboards, I thought that someone had come through a door that I didn't realise existed. Before we set off on our walk around the wider estate, just bulking up on the calories, we packed ourselves a packed lunch because we weren't really too sure what the situation was with the cafe here, but we have gone in and already bought some cream teas so that we've got a nice reward of those when we get back. As we're walking up towards Godolphin Hill, we're going up a lane that the National Trust has put on the map as being called the Strips. It's expected that back in the medieval times the fields were divided up into strips, and that's where the name then comes from, and it's a term that's particularly found in Cornwall. I think based on the width of this path, it was probably used to push sheep up to graze on the hilltop and obviously bring them back down to the farm buildings behind me. And then the National Trust have been saying that in the 17th century sycamore trees became very fashionable, and so they were planted on either side to create more of an avenue up towards the house. This next section, still trying to get up to the top of Godolphin Hill, has, as you can probably see, a fence on my left hand side. And that's because on the other side of the fence you've got pits and mine shafts, and what we learned a couple of days ago when we took the tour at Levant Mine is that way back when the mines first all closed, people just put like a few wooden sleepers over the open pits and then just dumped a whole load of earth on top and took the premise of that'll do. But obviously many decades, even centuries on, and as the rains have fallen and gravity's obviously pushed the water downhill, it's taken with it a lot of the soil and the earth that was dumped on top and has then created these open mine shafts which have become very dangerous, so hence why they've got this fence up. The hiking trail takes us relatively close to the Leeds engine house and chimney stack. It was something that was repointed by the National Trust back in 2002, and currently they have things like bats and barn owls living inside of there. Back when this was actually a working mine, the Godolphin family were particularly interested in early innovations and technologies, and of all of the mining sites in Cornwall, this was always one that tended to be at the forefront of whatever was new at the time. Because Godolphin is pretty much on the doorstep of our Airbnb property, our host had very kindly left a walks booklet. It did have a price sticker on it of £2, and we did see at the entrance today that they're now £3. I'm not too sure how long ago she purchased it, but I've got a feeling that it doesn't really matter because the trail paths don't really change that much. But anyway, I digress. Inside of the booklet, it was hinting that we might be able to spot some animals, some lizards potentially warming themselves up on a rock if it was sunny. They've also got adders, which is the only poisonous snake that we've got in this country. I've never seen one. It's definitely on my bucket list to see one, but you know, naturally from a safe distance, we've not seen any yet today. But we have seen some of the cows that they allow to come up here, and the point of the cows is that they will eat some of the more vigorous plants, and that then gives the smaller ones a bit more of an opportunity to grow and thrive up here. And we saw some of those just as we were getting to the houses where Godolphin Cross is. But also we've seen much smaller things like butterflies, moths and bees. And I've even seen one butterfly that was getting bullied by an ant which kept on crawling up one of the fern stems, and every time it touched the butterfly's leg it was kind of freaking out a little bit, fluttered around, moved further up, and then the ant just moved further up the stem and did the same thing again until the butterfly just gave up and went. So no adders, but the other wildlife's been pretty cool. Thinking that we were trying to find a rock for the summit marker of Godolphin Hill, and I think in today's instance our summit marker might actually be a herd of cows. Just ran out at me. saying that we want to keep the oak and the hawthorn, which we've definitely got there, on that side of us, and we want to go all the way through this field. I'm quite happy that the cows are way over on the other side of this paddock. It's a little bit unnerving walking through them all at the peak back there. And then when we get down to the very bottom, I believe that there are some California pines that were planted back in the 1940s, which again I think was following those fashions of the early 1900s of trying to bring in those exotic plants and shrubs and trees. And apparently this field here used to be full of stones and boulders, but in order for farmers to be able to cultivate the land, they cleared them out and had sheep brought in. So my understanding is, much like the wall that we've just had to climb over using the funkiest style going, I think that there's probably going to be another one down at the very bottom. Having consistently dropped down through the farmers' fields, we've now come down to the valley floor and we're walking along the River Hale, although to be honest it looks a little bit more like a stream. Again, the guide that we're following that the National Trust has given us says that along here you're able to spot potentially some otters as well as quite cool insects and some small birds as well. We've not seen anything so far, although we do every now and again hear the odd tweets of some of the birds. And another thing that they've said to look out for is the slightly discoloration of either the earth or some of the plants. I'm not too sure if it's on the river beds or actually in the river itself, but discoloured an orange hue because of the copper mining that went on in the Godolphin estate, which reminds me an awful lot of some of the copper colours that we saw when doing the National Trust's Aberglaslyn Gorge walk up in Wales the other month. So we've not seen anything quite as spectacular as that yet, but we've only been walking along it for a minute or two. The walk down by the riverside was incredibly short-lived. Didn't get to see any of the wildlife, and before we knew it we doubled on back to the house. So we've just stopped off for an English cream tea with gorgeous clotted cream and strawberry jam, and just as we were about to leave we found the badminton court and no one's playing on it, so we're going to have a quick game. Ready?
No.
I would just like to point out that if it looks like we're doing a terrible job, this is the birdie or the shuttlecock that we're needing to play with. We're also outside and it's a little bit windy still.